Lieutenant Jack Miller yawned as he sat at his communications station on the bridge of the UES Valiant. He had been awake for almost 2 days straight. The massive spaceship was humanity's pride, representing Earth in the vast galaxy they had only recently joined. Jack's job was to talk with other ships and with command back on Earth. It was usually boring work, but important. "Miller, you look terrible," said Lieutenant Daniel Wright, Jack's friend and bunkmate. Daniel dropped into the chair next to Jack's station. "Thanks for noticing," Jack said. He rubbed his eyes and took another sip of his synthetic caffeine drink. It tasted awful, but kept him awake. 36 hours and counting. Why don't you ask Captain Hayes for a break? Daniel asked. Jack shook his head. Can't. Too many important messages coming in about the Krell attacks. Someone needs to be here. Who knows the secure channels? The year was 2157, and humans had been part of the galactic community for 10 years now. For the last 3 years, they had been fighting against the Krell Dominion, aliens who wanted to take over everyone's planets. Earth had joined with other species to fight back. Jack's screen lit up with an incoming message. "It's Admiral Grayson," he told Daniel, sitting up straighter despite his tiredness. He pressed the button to accept the call. "This is Lieutenant Miller on the UES Valiant receiving you, Admiral." Admiral Grayson's stern face appeared on the screen. "Lieutenant, I need to speak with Captain Hayes." "Yes, sir." "She's in a meeting with the engineering team." "I'll notify her right away," Jack said, sending a quick message to the captain. While they waited, the Admiral began talking about new alliance strategies. "The diplomatic marriage program is showing promise. 3 officers have already been matched with compatible species. The Arctarians and the Lumen have both increased their military support as a result." Jack had heard about this program. Earth's military had started arranging marriages between human officers and aliens from potentially friendly species. It was an old-fashioned idea, but it seemed to work in galactic politics. The matched couples served as living symbols of alliance between their peoples. As the Admiral continued talking about resource allocation and fleet movements, Jack felt his eyes growing heavy. The synthetic caffeine wasn't working anymore. Daniel nudged him, and Jack straightened up again. When the Admiral paused for a moment, Daniel whispered, "Maybe you should volunteer for the marriage program? At least you'd get a week of leave." "For the ceremony," Jack snorted. "At this point, I'd take any wife they'd send me, even one with fangs, if it meant getting a week of shore leave." He had meant it as a joke between friends, but to his horror, he realized the channel to Admiral Grayson was still open. The Admiral's eyebrows shot up. "Lieutenant Miller, I don't appreciate humor during official communications," Admiral Grayson said coldly. Jack's face turned red. "I apologize, sir. It was unprofessional." Thankfully, Captain Lavra Hayes arrived at that moment, saving Jack from further embarrassment. She gave him a disapproving look as she took over the call. Jack slumped in his chair. "I'm dead," he muttered to Daniel. "The captain is going to kill me." Daniel patted his shoulder. "Get some sleep. It'll be forgotten by tomorrow." Jack nodded and left the bridge after his replacement arrived. He dragged himself to his quarters and fell onto his bed without even taking off his uniform. 3 weeks passed, and the incident was mostly forgotten. Jack continued his duties and managed to stay awake during his shifts. The Valiant patrolled the edges of human space, occasionally engaging with small Krell scout ships. Then one morning, Jack was called to Captain Hayes' office. When he arrived, he found her reviewing a message with a serious expression. "Lieutenant Miller," she said, looking up, "we've received an unexpected communication. A Nosferi diplomatic vessel will be docking with us in 6 hours. They specifically asked for your presence at the meeting." Jack blinked in confusion. "The Nosferi, ma'am?" "Yes, they're a species we've been trying to form an alliance with for months. They're powerful warriors with advanced technology, but they've been hesitant to join our coalition against the Krell." Jack knew about the Nosferi. Everyone did. They looked almost human except for their pale skin, unusual eyes, and the small fangs they used to absorb energy rather than blood. They were called vampires by many humans because of these features. They were known to be honorable but rigid in their ways. "Why would they ask for me?" Jack asked. Captain Hayes shook her head. I don't know. The message only says it relates to coalition expansion efforts. Command is very interested in this meeting. The Nosferi could turn the tide against the Krell. Yes, ma'am, Jack said, still confused but knowing better than to question further. 6 hours later, Jack stood in the Valiant's docking bay alongside Captain Hayes and Chief Security Officer Frank Bennett. Jack's uniform was perfectly pressed, and he had made sure to be well rested for this mysterious meeting. Any idea what this is about, Miller? Captain Hayes asked as they waited. No, ma'am, Jack replied. I've never had contact with the Nosferi before. The ship that docked with the Valiant was beautiful and frightening at the same time. It was shaped like a black diamond, with no visible engines or weapons, though sensors indicated it carried both. It connected to their docking bay with a soft hiss. When the door opened, Jack's heart began to race. 4 Nosferi warriors in black armor entered first, their faces marked with glowing lines that pulsed with light. Behind them came a taller figure that made Jack's mouth drop open. She was almost 7 feet tall, with skin like white marble and long silver hair pulled back in complex braids. Her armor was more decorated than the others, showing her high rank. Her eyes shifted between red and purple as she looked around the docking bay. When her gaze fell on Jack, she smiled slightly, showing the tips of her fangs. Welcome aboard the U.S. Valiant, Captain Hayes said formally. I am Captain Lava Hayes. The tall Nosferi woman stepped forward. I am Commander Lyra Venara of House Knight's Edge, 13th Bloodline, she said in perfect English. I thank you for your welcome. She turned to Jack. And you must be Lieutenant Jackson Miller, Jack swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Lyra's facial markings glowed brighter. Excellent. I have traveled far to meet you and to honor your proposal. My ... what? Jack asked, feeling suddenly cold. Your marriage proposal, Lyra said calmly. I have accepted it on behalf of the Nosferi people, and I am here to formalize our union and the military alliance between our species. Jack's vision swam. Captain Hayes and Chief Bennett stared at him in shock. There must be some mistake. Jack began, but Captain Hayes cut him off with a sharp look. We are honored by your acceptance, Commander Venera, the captain said smoothly. Lieutenant Miller will be pleased to discuss the details with you. This is an unexpected but welcome development in our relations with the Nosferi. As Lyra and her guards were shown to the diplomatic quarters, Captain Hayes grabbed Jack's arm. What did you do, Miller? She hissed. Jack's mind raced back to that day on the bridge. To his joke about taking any wife, even one with fangs, if it meant getting shore leave. I think I accidentally got engaged to a vampire warbride. Ma'am, he whispered, his face pale. Captain Hayes looked like she wanted to throw him out the airlock. Fix this without causing a diplomatic incident, or you'll be cleaning waste recyclers for the rest of your career. Jack nodded weakly, watching Lyra's tall figure disappear down the corridor. How was he going to explain the concept of jokes to a species known for taking everything literally? Jack paced back and forth in his quarters, running his hands through his hair. His friend Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, watching him with wide eyes. Let me get this straight, Daniel said. That joke you made about taking a wife with fangs somehow reached the Nosferi? Apparently, the channel to Admiral Grayson stayed open longer than I thought, Jack explained. The Admiral must have shared it with his diplomatic team, who sent it to the Nosferi as some kind of formal proposal. Daniel tried not to laugh but failed. And now you're engaged to a 7-foot-tall vampire warrior princess? Commander, Jack corrected automatically. She's a military commander, not royalty. And stop laughing. This isn't funny. It's a little funny, Daniel said, wiping his eyes. Jack's door chimed. When he opened it, he found Captain Hayes standing there with a serious expression. Lieutenant Miller, your presence is requested in meeting room 3. Commander Venera wishes to begin cultural exchange discussions. Jack swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Right away. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Captain Hayes spoke in a low voice. Command has made it very clear how important this alliance is, Miller. The Nosferi have powerful ships and technology we need to fight the Krell. But Captain, I can't actually marry her," Jack protested. Captain Hayes stopped and faced him. "You will do whatever is necessary for this alliance. That's an order. Figure out a way to make this work without offending her." She softened slightly. "Look, just talk to her. Explain human customs. Find a compromise." Jack nodded reluctantly and entered meeting room 3. Lyra sat at the table, her silver hair now loose around her shoulders. Without her armor, she wore a simple black uniform with silver markings that matched the glowing lines on her face. 2 Nosferi guards stood by the door but left when Jack entered. "Lieutenant Miller," Lyra said, standing up. She was still much taller than him. "I am pleased to begin our pre-bonding discussions." Jack took a deep breath. "Commander Venera, there's been a misunderstanding." Lyra tilted her head. "Explain." When you heard me say I would take a wife with fangs, I wasn't making a formal proposal. I was making what humans call a joke, a statement not meant to be taken seriously." Lyra's facial markings pulsed rapidly. "You spoke falsely?" "Without intention to honor your words." Jack winced at her tone. "Not exactly, it's more complicated. Humans sometimes say things we don't literally mean as a way to cope with stress or to entertain each other." Lyra sat down slowly, her red-purple eyes fixed on him. "This concept is unfamiliar to me. Nosferi believe words have power and meaning. We do not speak without purpose." Jack sat across from her. "I understand that now, and I apologize for the confusion. Yet your military command presented your words to our matriarchy as a formal proposal," Lyra said. "Your Admiral Grayson indicated this would be a beneficial alliance match." Jack realized the situation was even more complicated than he'd thought. Command had deliberately used his joke for diplomatic purposes. "It seems my superiors saw an opportunity," he admitted. Lyra nodded. "As did mine. The Nosferi have been considering joining your coalition against the Krell, but we required stronger assurance of humanity's commitment, and a marriage provides that assurance." Kik asked. "Yes, among my people, marriage bonds are powerful. Political alliances, not merely personal arrangements. I was selected because of my military rank and bloodline. It is an honor to serve my people this way." She paused. "Though I had expected my future mate would feel the same." Jack felt guilty, seeing the subtle change in her expression. "I'm sorry, it's not that I object to you personally. This is just very sudden." "The Krell threat is immediate," Lyra said simply. "There is no time for lengthy courtships." Before Jack could respond, the ship's alert system blared. Captain Hayes's voice came over the communication system. "All hands to battle stations. Krell vessels detected on approach vector." Jack stood quickly. "I need to get to my post." "I will join you," Lyra said, rising. "I wish to observe your battle capabilities." Jack didn't have time to argue. They rushed to the bridge together, where chaos was already unfolding. Tactical screens showed 3 Krell attack ships approaching the Valiant. Lieutenant Miller, too. "Your station," Captain Hayes ordered. "Commander Venera, you may observe from the secondary tactical position." Jack hurried to his communications console and began coordinating with the weapons teams. The Krell ships moved fast, firing their energy weapons at the Valiant. The ship shuddered under the impact. "Shields at 60%, someone called out. "Return." "Fire," Captain Hayes ordered. The Valiant's weapons struck one of the Krell ships, but the other 2 continued their attack. Suddenly, the bridge door burst open as 2 alien figures rushed in. They were Krell boarding parties, tall, insect-like creatures with multiple arms holding weapons. "Intruder alert!" Chief Bennett shouted, drawing his weapon, before anyone could react. Lyra moved. She crossed the bridge in a blur of speed that Jack's eyes could barely follow. Her hands held 2 curved blades that hadn't been visible before. She struck the first Krell attacker with incredible precision, then spun to engage the second. The bridge crew watched in amazement as Lyra single-handedly neutralized both Krell boarders within seconds. Her movements were fluid and deadly, beyond human capability. When she finished, she stood calmly among the fallen attackers, not even breathing hard. "Your ship has been boarded," she stated simply. "I suggest you check for more intruders." Captain Hayes snapped out of her shock and ordered security teams to sweep the ship. Meanwhile, the battle with the remaining Krell ships continued. Lyra stepped forward. Captain Hayes, with your permission, I will contact my vessel. We can assist in this battle. The captain nodded, and Lyra used Jack's communication station to send a message. Moments later, the sleek Nosferee ship detached from the Valiant and engaged the Krell vessels with weapons far more advanced than the Valiant's. Within minutes, the Krell ships were destroyed or retreating as the danger passed. Jack found himself staring at Lyra with new respect. She had moved with supernatural speed and strength, just like the legends of vampires on Earth, but she had used those abilities to protect his ship and crew when the all-clear was given. Lyra approached Jack. Again. This is why the Nosferee-Human alliance matters, she said quietly. Your ships are strong, but the Krell are stronger. Together we can defeat them, Jack nodded slowly. I saw what you did. It was impressive. It was my duty, Lyra replied. As would be our marriage, she paused, studying his face, that I do not wish for an unwilling mate. Among my people, alliances work best when both parties are committed to the same goal. Jack thought about the battle they had just survived, about the Krell threat that endangered all species in the galaxy. He thought about how Lyra had protected his crewmates without hesitation. Maybe we could start with a proper cultural exchange, he suggested. I'd like to learn more about your people, and you could learn more about humans, including our concept of jokes. The glowing marks on Lyra's face pulsed in a pattern that Jack was beginning to think might be the equivalent of a smile. I find this acceptable, Lieutenant Miller, she said. We have much to learn from each other. As they walked back to the meeting room to continue their discussion, Jack realized that his accidental proposal might have just helped save the ship, perhaps. There was more to this arrangement than he had first thought. Over the next 2 weeks, Jack and Lyra spent several hours each day together in what the crew now called diplomatic meetings. Captain Hayes had given them permission to use the observation deck during off-peak hours where they could talk privately while watching the stars. So your people don't actually drink blood? Jack asked during one of these sessions. They sat near the large window that showed the vastness of space outside. That is a human misunderstanding, Lyra explained. We absorb vital energy through special glands near our teeth. She pointed to her fangs. We can take this energy from certain foods or, in emergencies, from compatible living beings. But we do not need to harm the donor. Jack nodded. That makes more sense than the old Earth legends about vampires. These legends interest me, Lyra said. You must tell me more about them sometime. Their conversations often went this way, each learning about the other's culture, history, and biology. Jack discovered that Nosferee lived for hundreds of years, could see in complete darkness, and had reflexes 5 times faster than humans. Lyra learned about Earth's diverse cultures, human humor, and the concept of romance, something quite different from the arranged marriages common among her people. In your stories, Lyra asked one day, humans choose mates based on an emotion called love. How do you know when you feel this? Jack thought carefully before answering. It's different for everyone. Some people describe it as a warm feeling when you're with someone. Others say it's about wanting what's best for another person, even above yourself. Lyra's facial markings pulsed slowly as she considered this. Nosferee form strong bonds with our battle partners? We would die to protect them. Is this similar? That sounds like loyalty and friendship, which are parts of love, Jack said. But romantic love usually has other feelings too. Their cultural exchanges were frequently interrupted by ship duties. The Krell attacks had increased since the Nosferee ship joined the Valiant on patrol. It seemed the enemy had noticed the potential alliance and wanted to stop it. During one particularly long battle, Jack worked non-stop at his communications station, coordinating between the Valiant, the Nosferee ship, and 3 other human vessels that had joined them. When the fight was finally over, he was exhausted. As he left the bridge, he found Lyra waiting in the corridor. She had been working with the tactical team during the battle. You need rest, she said, noticing his tired eyes. I'll be fine, Jack. insisted but stumbled slightly as he walked. Without asking permission, Lyra put her arm around him to steady him. Jack was surprised at how naturally he leaned against her. Despite her cool skin, there was something comforting about her presence. "Your quarters are this way?" she asked. Jack nodded, too tired to protest as she helped him through the ship's corridors. When they reached his room, she helped him to his bed. "Thank you," he said softly. Lyra looked around his small quarters with curiosity. Her eyes fell on a photo on his desk. Jack with an older man and woman. "Your family unit?" she asked. "My parents," Jack confirmed. "They live in a small town in Oregon. That's on Earth." "Do they know of our arrangement?" Jack laughed weakly. "I sent them a message last week. My mom replied that she always knew I'd find someone special, though she probably didn't expect an alien warrior." Lyra's markings pulsed in what Jack now recognized as amusement. "And they are not opposed?" "They want me to be happy," Jack said simply. "And they understand duty." "My father was a soldier too," Lyra nodded approvingly. "My bloodline will respect this. Family honor is important to us." As Jack drifted toward sleep, he realized how comfortable he had become around Lyra. What had started as an awkward, diplomatic situation was turning into something like friendship. The next morning, Jack was called to Captain Hayes's office. Admiral Grayson's face appeared on the communications screen when he entered. "Lieutenant Miller," the Admiral said, "I've been reviewing the reports of your cultural exchange with Commander Venera. It seems to be progressing well." "Yes, sir," Jack replied. "We're learning a lot about each other's cultures." "Excellent." "The Nosferi High Command has formally proposed a date for the bonding ceremony. 3 weeks from now, aboard the Valiant." Jack felt his heart jump. Despite the progress with Lyra, he hadn't fully accepted that the marriage would actually happen. "That's very soon, sir," he managed to say. "The Krell won't wait, Lieutenant," Admiral Grayson said firmly. "This alliance needs to be formalized. The ceremony will be attended by high-ranking officials from both our species." His expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, Miller, I think you're handling this situation admirably. Not many officers could adapt to such an unusual assignment." After the call ended, Captain Hayes gave Jack a sympathetic look. "How are you really doing with all this, Miller?" Jack thought for a moment. "It's still strange, Captain, but Commander Venera is what I expected. She's intelligent, honorable, and actually has a sense of humor, though it's different from ours." Hayes nodded. "The crew has noticed you two seem to be getting along well. Some are even a bit jealous." "Jealous?" Jack asked in surprise. "Miller, you're paired with one of the most impressive warriors in the galaxy. A few officers have mentioned that your accidental proposal might be the luckiest mistake anyone has ever made." That afternoon, Jack found Lyra in the ship's gym, practicing combat moves with Chief Bennett. Her speed made her almost blur as she demonstrated Nosferi fighting techniques. Several crew members watched in amazement. When she finished, Jack approached her. "Can we talk privately?" They walked to their usual spot on the observation deck. Jack told her about the proposed ceremony date. "Does this timeline trouble you?" Lyra asked, watching his face carefully. "It's just very fast by human standards," Jack admitted. "We usually spend more time getting to know someone before marriage." Lyra was quiet for a moment. "In the past 2 weeks, we have faced battle together, shared our cultural knowledge, and learned each other's ways. Among my people, this is considered a thorough preparation for bonding." "I guess when you put it that way, dull quotes," Jack said. "But if you truly object," Lyra continued, "I will inform my superiors that more time is needed. The alliance is important, but so is proper understanding between us." Jack looked at her, surprised by her consideration. The glowing lines on her face pulsed gently as she waited for his answer. In that moment, he realized that, despite the strange circumstances, he had come to respect and admire Lyra deeply. 3 weeks is acceptable," he said finally. "But I have one condition." "What is this condition?" Lyra asked. "I want to learn more about your combat techniques," Jack said with a small smile. "If I'm going to be married to a legendary warrior, I should at least know the basics of how you fight." Lyra's markings glowed brighter than he had ever seen before. This is a worthy request. We will begin tomorrow. As they continued watching the stars together, Jack wondered how a simple joke had led him here, preparing to marry an alien warrior. As part of an interstellar alliance? Yet somehow it no longer seemed like the worst mistake of his career. In fact, it was starting to feel like the beginning of something important. Jack landed hard on his back on the training mat. This was the fourth time in the last hour that Lyra had put him there. His muscles ached, but he got up again, determined. "Your balance is improving," Lyra said. She stood in a relaxed stance, hardly looking like someone who had been training intensely for an hour. "You shift your weight too much before striking. This gives away your intentions." Jack nodded and tried again. He had been learning Nosfari combat basics for a week now, and while he would never match their natural speed and strength, he was beginning to understand their techniques. "The key is efficiency," Lyra explained as they circled each other. "Humans use many movements where one would suffice." Jack tried to apply this advice, making his next attack more direct. Lyra still blocked it easily, but she nodded with approval. "Better. You learn quickly for a human." Coming from Lyra, this was high praise. Jack had noticed that she never said things she didn't mean. If she gave a compliment, she truly believed it. Their training sessions had become a daily routine, one that Jack actually looked forward to despite the bruises. It gave him a chance to see a different side of Lyra as a teacher, patient, but demanding. After training, they showered and met in the mess hall. Many crew members now greeted Lyra by name, having grown used to her presence on the ship. Some even sat with them during meals, asking questions about Nosfari culture or sharing stories about Earth. "Is it true your people can see emotions as colors?" asked Nurse Kelly, one of the medical staff who had become friendly with them. "Not precisely," Lyra replied. "We sense energy patterns. Different emotions create different patterns, which we perceive visually as changes in light and color." "What does Jack look like to you right now?" Kelly asked with curiosity. Lyra turned to study Jack. Her unusual eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. "His energy is bright, with patterns of blue and green. There are small flares of orange that usually indicates physical discomfort." Jack rubbed his shoulder. "That would be from getting thrown on the mat repeatedly." Everyone laughed, including Lyra, though her laugh was more subtle, a gentle pulsing of the markings on her face and a soft sound like distant bells. As they finished eating, a message came through on Jack's communication device. "Captain Hayes needs us on the bridge," he told Lyra. When they arrived, they found the captain looking worried. "We've received new orders," Hayes explained. "There's a Krell fleet gathering near Outpost 37. We're being sent to investigate, along with 3 other coalition ships." Jack checked the star charts. "That's close to the border of Nosfari space," Lyra nodded. "My ship has received similar orders from our command. We will accompany you." "The mission is reconnaissance only," Captain Hayes emphasized. "We're not to engage unless attacked. We leave in 2 hours. As they prepared for the mission, Jack helped Lyra transfer some of her personal items to the Nosfari ship. Their wedding was still 2 weeks away, but with combat missions increasing, they both needed to be ready to serve on either vessel. "Will you stay on the Valiant after we're married?" Jack asked as they walked through the corridor carrying Lyra's few possessions. "Our commands have not yet decided," Lyra said. "It may depend on where we are most useful in the war effort." Jack nodded. It was strange to think about married life during wartime, but many couples throughout history had faced similar situations. The journey to Outpost 37 took 18 hours. The Valiant traveled alongside Lyra's ship, which was called the Shadow Dancer in human language. 2 other human vessels and 1 more Nosfari ship joined them en route. When they arrived, the outpost appeared undamaged, but sensors detected unusual activity nearby. "There's something in the asteroid field," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple signatures, but they're masked somehow." "Krell stealth technology," Lyra said, studying the readings. "They are waiting to ambush supply ships to the outpost." "Captain." Hayes ordered the ships to spread out and continue scanning. Jack stayed at his communication station, keeping all vessels in constant contact. Suddenly, alerts blared across the bridge. Krell ships emerging from the asteroid field. At least 15 vessels attack formation. It's a trap, Captain Hayes said grimly. They wanted to draw coalition ships here. The space around them erupted with weapons fire. The coalition ships fought back, but they were outnumbered. The Valiant's rear shields are failing, called the tactical officer. Rotate to present our stronger shields, Captain Hayes ordered as they turned. A Krell energy beam struck the ship's engines. The Valiant shuddered violently, and warning lights flashed across all control panels. Engine damage critical. We're losing power? Captain Hayes made a quick decision. Launch emergency shuttles to evacuate non-essential personnel. The rest of us will try to keep the ship functional. Jack worked frantically to coordinate the evacuation while maintaining communication with the other ships. Lyra moved between stations, helping where needed with her superior strength and speed. As the battle continued, a massive explosion rocked the Valiant. Jack was thrown from his station, hitting his head hard against a wall. His vision blurred, but he could see fires breaking out across the bridge. Then Lyra was beside him, helping him up. "You must get to a shuttle," she said urgently. "I can't leave my post," Jack protested weakly. "The communication systems are destroyed," Lyra told him. "Captain Hayes has ordered remaining personnel to evacuate." She helped him through the smoke-filled corridors. Crew members were rushing toward the emergency shuttles, some carrying injured colleagues. They reached the shuttle bay just as another explosion shook the ship. Jack stumbled, but Lyra caught him. She practically carried him into one of the last shuttles. "What about you?" Jack asked, noticing she was guiding him to a seat but not taking one herself. "I must return for others," she said. "My strength and speed are needed." Before Jack could argue, Lyra touched his face gently. Her cool fingers felt soothing against his skin. The markings on her face pulsed in a pattern he hadn't seen before. "Stay safe, Jack Miller," she said softly. Then she was gone, running back into the burning ship. The shuttle launched moments later, carrying Jack and 15 other crew members away from the dying Valiant. Through the viewport, Jack watched in horror as Krell ships continued to fire. On the human vessel, suddenly, the Shadow Dancer moved into position between the Valiant and the attackers. The Nosferi ship's advanced weapons blazed, destroying 2 Krell vessels immediately. This gave the remaining shuttles time to escape. Jack tried to contact Lyra but couldn't get through. As the shuttle moved farther away, he saw more explosions. Rock the Valiant? The ship that had been his home for 3 years was breaking apart. "Please be safe," he whispered, hoping somehow Lyra would find a way to survive. In that moment, he realized how important she had become to him in the short time they had known each other. The thought of losing her was unbearable. The shuttle pilot announced they were heading for Outpost 37, where they would regroup with other survivors. Jack nodded numbly, his eyes still fixed on the battle behind them, searching for any sign that Lyra had escaped the destruction of the Valiant. 3 days passed at Outpost 37. Jack spent most of his time in the medical bay, recovering from a mild concussion and helping with the other injured crew members. Survivors from the Valiant continued to arrive in shuttles and rescue pods, but there was still no word from Lyra. Captain Hayes had survived and was working to account for all crew members. Out of the Valiant's crew of 328 were confirmed dead, and 45 were still missing, including Lyra. "Lieutenant Miller," Captain Hayes said, approaching his bed in the medical bay. "How are you feeling?" "Better, Captain," Jack replied, sitting up straighter. "Any news?" Hayes shook her head. "Nothing yet. But the Nosferi are still searching. They don't give up on their people easily." Jack nodded, trying to stay hopeful. "The Shadow Dancer took heavy damage protecting our shuttles." "Yes, their actions saved many lives," Hayes agreed. "The Nosferi have proven themselves true allies in this fight." That evening, Jack sat alone in the outpost observation area, watching rescue ships come and go. His friend Daniel found him there. "You should get some rest," Daniel said, sitting beside him. "I can't," Jack admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see the Valiant breaking apart. I see Lyra running back into danger to save others." Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. She's tough, Jack, tougher than any human. If anyone could survive that, it's her. Jack nodded but couldn't shake his worry. I never thought I'd feel this way about someone I met because of a stupid joke. Life is strange that way, Daniel said. Sometimes the best things start from mistakes. A commotion at the docking bay caught their attention. They hurried to see what was happening. A small Nosferi scout ship had arrived, and medical teams were rushing to meet it. Jack pushed through the crowd, his heart racing. When the ship's doors opened, several Nosferi warriors emerged, carrying injured comrades. And there, helping a wounded human crew member walk, was Lyra. Her armor was damaged, her silver hair singed at the ends, and a deep cut ran across her cheek. But she was alive. "Lyra!" Jack called out, rushing forward. She looked up, her unusual eyes finding him in the crowd. The markings on her face pulsed brightly, and she passed the injured crew member to a medic before moving toward Jack. Without thinking, Jack pulled her into a tight hug. For a moment, Lyra seemed surprised by this human display of emotion, but then her arms wrapped around him too. "I feared you were lost," Jack said softly. "Nosferi are difficult to kill," Lyra replied, but her voice held more emotion than usual. "We found a damaged escape pod and drifted for 2 days before the scout ship located us." They moved apart slightly, but Jack kept hold of her hand. He noticed her facial markings were pulsing in that same pattern he had seen just before she left him on the shuttle, a pattern he now recognized meant deep feeling. "You saved many lives," he told her. "As did you, coordinating the evacuation," she responded. "We fought well together." Over the next week, coalition forces regrouped at Outpost 37. The Krell attack had been costly, but it had also demonstrated the effectiveness of humans and Nosferi working together. 3 more Nosferi ships arrived, bringing supplies and reinforcements. Admiral Grayson visited the outpost to assess the situation and plan their next moves against the Krell. He also had news for Jack and Lyra. "The high commands of both our species have discussed your situation," the Admiral told them during a private meeting. "Given recent events, they believe your bonding ceremony is more important than ever. It will show our united resolve against the Krell." "When would this ceremony take place, sir?" Jack asked. "In 3 days, here at the outpost," Admiral Grayson said. "High-ranking officials from both species will attend. It will be a symbol of our alliance." After the Admiral left, Jack and Lyra walked through the quieter sections of the outpost. You still willing to go through with this?" Jack asked. Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. "When I returned to the burning ship to help others, I had one thought that gave me strength. I must survive to see you again." Jack was surprised by her admission. "I felt the same way. When I thought you might be gone," he took a deep breath, "I realized how important you've become to me." "Then it seems this arrangement is no longer merely diplomatic," Lyra said, her markings pulsing brightly. "No, it's not," Jack agreed with a smile. "It's become something real." 3 days later, the largest room in Outpost 37 was transformed for the ceremony. Humans and Nosferi worked together to blend traditions from both cultures. Human flowers and Nosferi-like crystals decorated the space. Jack wore a new uniform, provided by Admiral Grayson, with special insignia marking his role in the alliance. When Lyra entered, Jack's breath caught in his throat. She wore traditional Nosferi ceremonial armor, but it was unlike her battle gear. This armor was elegant, made of a material that seemed to shift between black and deep purple. Silver patterns that matched her facial markings flowed across it. Her silver hair was braided with tiny crystals that caught the light. Captain Hayes conducted the human portion of the ceremony, speaking about bridges between worlds and strength found in diversity. A Nosferi elder performed their rituals, which involved passing energy between the couple using special crystals. When it came time for vows, Jack spoke from the heart. "Lyra, when we met, I didn't understand your ways and you didn't understand mine. But we learned together, fought together, and almost lost each other. I promise to stand by you, in battle and in peace for all our days." Lyra's markings glowed brilliantly as she responded. "Jack Miller, you have shown me that words spoken in jest can lead to true bonds. I pledge my strength to you, my honor to your people, and my heart to our shared future." They exchanged simple rings, a human tradition, and Lyra placed a small crystal that matched her markings on Jack's uniform. Collar, a Nosferi custom daub as they sealed their vows with a kiss, another human tradition that Lyra had come to appreciate. The assembled crowd of humans and Nosferi cheered. Their union represented hope in the midst of war, a promise that different species could not only fight together, but build something lasting. At the celebration afterward, Admiral Grayson announced that Jack and Lyra would be assigned to a new ship, the Alliance, the first vessel jointly crewed by humans and Nosferi. They would serve as liaisons between the species, using their unique relationship to help others work together effectively. Later that night, Jack and Lyra stood at a viewport looking out at the stars. "I have a saying from Earth," Jack said softly. "Be careful what you joke about, it might come true." Lyra's lips curved in a smile, her fangs catching the starlight. "And we have a saying, the universe has a sense of humor, even in the darkest times." Jack took her hand, still amazed at how natural it felt now. "I'm glad it does." As they looked out at the stars together, Jack thought about how a careless joke had led to the most important relationship of his life. Sometimes he realized the best things come from the most unexpected beginnings. And sometimes a vampire Warbride taking a joke seriously was exactly what the universe intended all along.